Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Jesus Magnet podcast. This one is going to be cool. It's probably the better looking of guests that we've had so far. I think we can say that, Joel.
We're allowed to call our guests good looking.
Given that they're our wives.
Welcome Laura, welcome Chantelle to the Jesus Magnet podcast.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on to share with us your wisdom and your knowledge. What a great introduction, Todd. Much better than my last ones lately.
Yeah, what's going on there?
I don't know.
Come on, man.
Yeah. We thought we'd bring the wives on, and because we want to know more than anyone else how to run our marriage right.
Yeah, this is more for us as like Joel and myself more than anyone else, but I hope we get something out of it.
True. All right, so the topic for today is marriage, early marriage, really, because my wife and I, Laura, we are how many years married?
What are we, 5? 5 years.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's a bit of counting there on our fingers.
Two more than Chantelle and I.
Yeah, and actually these guys got married on the same weekend 2 years later.
Yeah, it's just
we got married.
It's just to help you out, so you know
We can remember.
that if I forget and I get yelled at, that
Exactly.
you only have a couple of days to remember.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, to be fair, so those that are listening, we did get married at the end of April. And a little life hack for when you are planning your wedding, if you go the end of the month, you've got the whole month knowing, oh yeah, I've got something really important at the end of the month.
Yeah, what is it?
The anniversary, I've got to remember it. Now, if you're at the start of the month, then you're not really thinking about it until it's too late. So I always recommend anybody getting married, get married at the end of a month, and it will save your remembering for your anniversary throughout the whole month.
Yeah.
We're the last day of April, so I got a real good countdown for us.
Unless you did what I did once and was in the wrong month. So I said, Todd, it's almost our anniversary. And he's like, no, it's
Really?
May. And I'm like, oh, we're not there yet. Whew.
Yeah, and then we always debate, were we the 27th or 28th? I can't remember. And it's fine because both of us don't remember. It's not just like I don't remember.
What?
Yeah, we
Yes.
never remember which
Really?
date it was. And we used your wedding to help us.
Was it 2 days before or something?
Yeah, 2 days before.
28th.
Oh, that's awesome.
To be fair, I do forget if it's the 30th or 31st because I never know how many days are in a month.
It's the 30th. And I
Oh, there
know
you
that it's the last day of April.
Yeah,
Do you do the knuckle?
Also, it's exactly 2 weeks from my birthday.
true.
So I had my birthday,
It's a big month
and
for you.
and it's like a Tuesday, and I'm like, okay, I got 2 weeks until the anniversary from that day.
It's the celebration month. You might as well take 40 days off and enjoy yourself.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
We were just counting up how much sick leave, bereavement leave, and leave you could take, and how many days it was. It was like 40. I was like, this
Yeah, it's quite a lot, which is awesome.
irrelevant to the podcast, but there you go.
All right, so let's get into it. So with marriage, I'm going to pass the baton to Laura and give you the question of what does a Christian marriage look like? What's a core value as Christians that we need to essentially center ourselves to make sure that our marriage is growing and being sharpened and things like that?
Yeah. Well, obviously, being Christian marriage, I believe that God should be the center. It's not just a marriage between two people. It's God's involved. There's 3 people in the marriage, with God at the center. So
That's good.
yeah, as long as He's involved, you can work through anything. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Actually, I'll just
you
jump in real quick because we're talking about our wedding. When we got married, we had these 3 ropes, and there were 2. They were kind of like brownie ropes,
yeah,
and
2
then there was
brown,
one that was
one
white.
Yep.
And the 2 brown ones was Laura and myself, and then we braided all 3 ropes together, and the middle one was God, and he was right in the middle, but our ropes ended, and his rope carried on.
Yeah, it's slightly
to show
longer.
the eternal, which is quite cool. I've got a really cool quote here from a guy called Thomas Adams, and he says, I sort of paraphrased it because I understand it better this way. And he says, As God by creation made two of everything, in marriage he made two into one. So he sort of reversed everything and brought two things together, which is quite cool. Because he literally split Adam, if you think about it, pulling Eve out of her, and then covenantally tied them together again in marriage, but becoming one flesh, which is quite neat.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Todd?
It's gone, but that's okay. What is the difference between like Christian marriage, apart from the obvious one, and Christian dating? Like, what spiritually?
Sex.
What's the difference?
That was the obvious one.
Marriage and dating.
True.
Yeah, but like, how does it change from going from relation to marriage? Like for you guys,
From when we were dating.
Yep.
Okay.
I think we got a lot closer.
We got closer. It was like a responsibility fell on me as the man, as the husband. I sort of was very easy breezy, not really to didn't have too much responsibility, or didn't take on too much responsibility as the boyfriend. And then the moment I became the husband, it was, we've established a family and I'm the head of that family now. And it was like, okay, I've really got to step up my game, and that caused me anyway to grow up really fast.
Yeah, we did a lot of growing up, eh?
Real fast, eh? And just taking on that mantle. I suppose you don't have that mantle as a boyfriend, and the mantle of a husband is a lot heavier than the mantle of a boyfriend. And I went into marriage with no thought of divorce. Like, a lot of people these days are like worldly marriages. They actually go into it with a prenup straight away.
Yeah.
Thinking that there's a way out.
There's always a way out. If it doesn't work out, you can get divorced. It doesn't there's nothing really sacred or important about marriage the moment you go into a marriage like that. The moment you go into it knowing that it's an eternal covenant, not just with you and your partner, but with you and God and your partner.
Yeah.
There's two other people involved in your relationship, not just you and your wife.
Yeah.
Or you and your husband.
Yeah.
And actually, that was probably the biggest change as well, is us bringing God into everything.
Yeah.
So I would not plan my life because it was just me and it didn't matter. And Laura was just my girlfriend. And then when we got married, Laura was a planner, and then all of a sudden we started planning everything. And it was good. Yeah. No, but it was good. I got into this realization that, man, I can actually plan years ahead, and I know Laura's going to be there. Now, you don't really have that safety net, even in a worldly marriage. You don't have that safety net of knowing that person's always going to be there. Obviously, unless they die, but they're never going to leave you. And that actually, with that in mind, knowing that you're never going to leave them, and they're never going to leave you, you're either going to work your butt off to have the best marriage you can have, because divorce is not an option, or you're like, there's no point slacking in your marriage if that relationship is not going anywhere. You know what I mean? Like, it was like this abundance of, this is the most important thing in my life now. What do you think, Todd?
Just as I needed a cough. When we got married, I think that, because I haven't been a Christian as long as you Joel, and I didn't know the principles of the Bible as much as I could have at the time, I guess. But we did a marriage counselling course beforehand with Pastor Tom and Jocelyn, and they showed us a few videos which, to be fair, almost put me to sleep. But I did. They were quite old, and the guy's voice was very soothing, I guess.
I still use them every night.
Yeah, and now that is how I get to sleep. But I found that we are there to be one couple and not to be fighting individual battles, but we go in together to fight spiritual battles if they were to come upon us.
Yeah.
That's good.
And we put God first in our own lives, because that growing together, we have to have our own relationship with Jesus. We can't take it off each other. But that is also how we can encourage each other, is to be better as a couple by just encouraging each other to have a deeper understanding of God and encourage each other a bit better. I mean, over the years we haven't been as good as we could. Like, we're still growing, and we're 3 years into a marriage, so there's still heaps of room to grow. So, yeah. What do you reckon, Chantelle?
Personally, I found it a lot harder to maintain my relationship with God when I got married, because I had a husband to think about as well, whereas on my own, I was doing my own thing, independent, no other person to sort of really think about. And I think I had quite a strong relationship with God, and not that it went down or less strong, but I think I forgot momentarily, just in the moment of being married, in that little honeymoon phase, and
did you start
focusing on the marriage,
Yeah.
and forgetting about my relationship with God a little bit. And also, like Todd mentioned, I started relying on him to help me with that relationship with God, rather than, no, it's actually me who needs to do that first, and then him on his own, and then bring two of us together, and that will be a strong marriage.
It's definitely a learning curve for sure, because we've never lived together. We don't know everything about each other, our day-to-day runnings, and how we operate. So, yeah, those first half a year, probably, I think it took a while to get into the swing of knowing how we work, and not to wake her up unless I have food. Yeah, so it did take a while. Yeah, it did definitely take a while for us to get into the swing of things.
Yeah, and we focused on that, and then forgot about God for a moment. Well, we didn't put him in the forefront while we were still learning about each other, and then we realised some things weren't working, so we thought, let's bring God into this.
They say the Holy Spirit's the most ignored person in the church sometimes. And that's in every marriage too, sometimes, forgetting that, he's a partner.
Yeah.
And, it's one of those things where you've got your focus on your wife, and you draw how important that is in your life. But the whole, from A to Z in the Bible, from Genesis to Revelations, it's this massive marriage proposal from God to us. It's this engagement, it's this wedding. Jesus is the bridegroom, and the church is the bride. So understanding that the Bible itself is based on a wedding. It's based on a relationship between a bride and a bridegroom. And it shows like what. So Jesus would go to the ends of the earth to die, lay his life down for his bride, the church. And he is the head of everything. So he laid himself down for his church, for the bride. So as a marriage, I think it's in Corinthians, it talks about the way husband is to the wife and the head of the house, but the husband needs to submit to, not submit, but to listen to the wife, and the wife needs to submit to the husband.
The wife needs to respect the husband, and the husband needs to love the wife or something.
Yeah. But as with Jesus, like, if you think about it, we do our own thing, right? Yet we partner with God and we ask him for direction. So as a wife in a relationship would still do their own thing, but they partner with their husband and ask for direction. on where they're actually going in life, and that it is the husband's job to be the head of the house to make those decisions with the best in mind for the wife. So it's this yin yang sort of relationship. So it's not that anyone's better than the other. One makes the decision based off the best benefit for the other, and the other lays everything down for the husband. Like it's this real funny circle, and I think if that's exercised efficiently, it's a beautiful thing. It really, really is. You shouldn't really overpower the husband in their decision making, even when they're wrong, But the best thing you can do, instead of arguing with them, is to love them.
Yeah.
And gently essentially steer them to the right way, but not take over as the husband's job.
And it's sometimes good to just go through, even if, say you decide something, I don't know what, and I'm like, oh, I think it could go this way better or something. It's kind of good to go through it, because as much as I think I know I might be right, I also could be wrong. So you're never going to know, really.
It's my famous saying on this podcast: you're right till you're wrong.
Yeah. It's you don't know what you don't know, so you may as well try something,
And that's how you learn.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. 5 years, 3 years into marriage, it's only a baby. So, and baby needs to be nurtured and looked after, and needs to learn how to do things. So that's how we should approach our relationship together and together to God.
Yeah.
And it's really important to surround yourselves with other married couples. So you guys being 5 years and us 3, it gave us 2 years of wisdom, of your experience first.
Don't do this.
And it was really helpful, and it's good to have even, your parents who have been married longer, or other people who have been married longer to look at and not compare, but just learn from.
Yeah.
I think comparisons, it's a funny one. People hate that word, compare. I find it's the most easy way to learn. Oh my gosh, I think I swallowed my moustache.
Let's see why.
But with comparisons, when I make, Laura and I, we doing a few businesses here and there, but we do make comparisons to make the better choice. And it's not to judge, it's to objectively discern what works really well and what doesn't work well. But it's never to vent or to badmouth or anything like that against any other couples or anything like that. And the great thing is with a Christian marriage is you're always bringing God into the center. So God will often use other marriages to shine a light on them and be like, this is what I want you to look like. This focus that they're doing, watch carefully. Or what they're doing, watch carefully to not do. But when God's at the center of it, it's a different kind of, you're not judging them in a condemning way. It's a learning to be, God teaches in those sort of ways. So it's right there, right easy to understand. And when you've got God at the center of it, you're not pulling anybody down or anything, especially because it's in a confidence as well with just you and your partner. You're not spreading rumors. It's just you and your partner. How can we strengthen each other? And I use this scripture all the time. It's one of my favorite ones in Proverbs. I think it's 19 something. As iron sharpens iron, one man sharpens another. And that goes into marriage too. So,
And
yeah.
And if you don't have another couple to compare or look to, just the Bible.
Yeah.
Because as you said, the Bible is a whole marriage.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing is just a big marriage. Right from the ugly to Adam and Eve rejecting God at the beginning, this stumble, this fall, this person not being perfect, to the relationship of Christ, who came to look, love keeps no record of wrongs. You know what I mean? Like, they rejected him. Then you look at Israel as a nation, and they constantly go on the cycle of, like, you know, we want God, and then God sends them a prophet, and they kind of get on the right track for a little bit, and then they start abandoning that, and they go into, like, ideology, and then they fall away, and they're essentially falling into this bad trap of sin and pride and all these things, and then they get into this really low place, and at that low point they're crying out, we need God, and it starts again, the circle starts again, and they send a prophet, and then but with a marriage, you know, you're never going to have just that high bit all the time. You're gonna go on that same cycle, and when God's at the center, it's always going to have restoration involved. And I'm not giving anybody free rein to just sin in your life, in your marriage, but essentially, if a marriage has God at the center, it doesn't matter how bad somebody might stuff up. Laura and I were talking about this morning. I at one of these weddings that we went to a few years ago, I got a little bit intoxicated, and Laura's like, sort of like saved my bacon a little bit, in the humiliation that it might have caused. But in our marriage, like, some people might take that personally, but since we've got God in the center, it's like a slip up. It's easily forgiven. Not that I don't take on that responsibility. I try and better myself, but if I continue to slide down those things, Laura's always going to be there for me, no matter how bad I get. But in the same respect, I've always got to put Laura at the center with God and go, no, I've got to better this marriage. This marriage isn't going away. It's a relationship. It's a covenant. I want to have the best marriage I can possibly have. So it's constantly this build. It could be 2 steps up, 1 step down, but it's always building to get better.
And everyone has their weaknesses, though. Like, you know, everyone just has different things that they struggle with, and I think God somehow makes it so that, you know, if I have a weakness in one area, you might be really strong in that, and then it, like, swaps. So if I'm having a real hard time with something, you're there to pull me up. And then if you're having a hard time with something, that might be a strength of mine, and then I can, you know, help you in that way. And it always seems to work like that. And it's not planned or anything; it just happens.
This amazing balance, divinely orchestrated.
And then when both of you are at a down point, and you're like, "Oh no,"
then you've always got God to lean on. And He's always there to pull you up. But then it's like Israel. You know, when they're at their weakest point, it's when God shows up every time. So even in your marriage, like Israel, when you're at the weakest point, both of you, God shows up. You just got to kind of get through it. It's
knowing that you're gonna have a low point at some point. Like, it's normal. Like, you're not gonna have a honeymoon your whole life, sort of thing. But God's always there, and you know, you can work through anything.
It's true.
Jeremiah. It was 27:17, by the way. Proverbs, iron sharpens iron. I don't know if you said that. Anyway, it says in Jeremiah, what fault did your ancestors find in me that they strayed so far away from me? They followed worthless idols and became worthless themselves. And I'm pretty sure in another verse, or another Bible, whatever they're called.
Verse?
Nope. Anyway, nope. Book. No.
Translation.
Thank you, Chantelle. See, this is why she knows. This is why we're together. It says...
when you're in your shorts, she jumps in.
Exactly. It says in another translation, adultery. Like, for some reason, God sees us following other idols and not being in a committed relationship with Him as being adultery, which is like, because you look up the word, the meaning to adultery, and it usually means like sexual sin or sexual immorality outside of a relationship. But when you are wholeheartedly looking at other idols and not fixated on your relationship with God or your spouse, then that now becomes an idol or adultery because you are putting that first over your marriage. So like work, or the obvious ones, pornography, and I don't know, gaming. For myself, I'm a gamer, so if I put that above Chantelle all the time, then that would be like idolizing the game, and I'd much rather be spending time with the game than her, which isn't fair, because I mean, I'd much rather spend time with Chantelle because I don't get angry at Chantelle, I get angry at the game.
So
That's good to know.
So there was a point where you might have been idolizing gaming over Chantelle, is that what you're saying?
Oh no, just like, this is like what I've just been reading Jeremiah recently, and it's really like looking at me trying to, the other translation I read was saying adultery, and it was more putting light on my relationship with God, that I'll be sitting in the car and all of a sudden I'll be on my phone just cruising through Instagram or Facebook and not spending time in my smoker, which I could just be hanging out with God and reading the book, or reading his word, or spending time with praying. So that was more putting light on that, but you can see how it translates over to marriage. If I'm idolizing something in our marriage, gaming was an example. Like if I was putting the gaming first and doing that every night rather than hanging out with Chantelle, then I'd be idolizing the gaming, and that would be not good for our marriage.
There's this concept called failing forwards, and I love this concept. I live by it, and essentially it's not being afraid to make mistakes, knowing that, because if you are afraid of making a mistake, you sort of restrict what you're going to do in life. They say the most successful people have made the most mistakes, and it's learning from that. Life's greatest teacher is mistakes, and obviously, as Christians, we've got the Holy Spirit to guide us in those mistakes every single time. But the Bible even talks about like what mistakes do and things like that. So in Romans 5, it talks about. It says not only that we rejoice. So this is not necessarily like mistakes, but it's like sufferings, like bad parts of our lives. Not only that we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope. And hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us. And then this is really cool. Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials and of various kinds, for you know that your testing of faith, that this is testing of your faith, produces steadfastness, and let steadfastness have a full effect, that you may be perfect, complete, lacking in nothing. So it's really weird. Count it joyful to endure these trials. So, I mean, that could come in many different forms, but you say you got a bit of a rocky marriage or something like that, and you're like, oh, what do I do in this? Hypothetically, if you never had issues, let's say your wife or your husband never stood up to you, never challenged you, never contributed to any growing factor of your life, and then you meet somebody else who has gone through multiple challenges and hardships. One person is going to be like, yeah, trust me, this is how you get through a marriage. They just never argue with you. They just cook and clean and they do everything right. And my marriage is great. I mean, it's going to be great for one person, probably.
It's like the magic coffee table, right?
Yeah. But if you were someone, like, if I needed help, that person's the last person I'm going to go to. I'm going to go to the person who has had a rough marriage and has gotten through it, who has gone through some hardships. Look, my wife's been lying to me, or I don't know, I don't feel like I'm contributing as the man or something like that. And it's one of those things where, like, those trials create this character, and that creates the endurance for hope for the Holy Spirit to be poured into your life. Without those trials in your marriage isn't going to get, it's like fine-tuned almost, you know? It gets sharper with God at the centre.
Yeah.
For sure. I've got a couple of questions. First one for the Hillarys. What ways do you think God is honoured in your marriage? It's a real tough one.
Ladies first.
Oh, how is God honoured in our marriage? Well, I believe we do put him first. Yeah, like, I mean, every morning we at least try to do our wake and pray. I must admit we've been pretty bad recently. Like, yeah, life just gets busy and there's no excuses. But, yeah, we
Do you want to just
explain what that
explain
is?
what wake and prayer is?
Yeah, so first thing we do when we wake up, we just pray. We think like a few things to pray for, each of us, and
There's
we
a
just
bit
wake
of
up and pray.
a bit of communication beforehand, So we say, you know, what would you like prayer for?
Yeah.
And then I might be like, I don't know, I've got a meeting today and I'm really worried about it.
Yeah.
You pray for that, and I say, what can I pray for you? So it's not just like a, what do they call it?
Blase, like, have a good
Blase
day.
prayer.
Yeah.
You're just like, thank you, Lord, for the sun coming up and the rabbits coming out. And, you know, it's not. So it's one that's intentional with meaning, and because if God's in your marriage, he's a person.
Yeah.
If I treated my wife like I treated God sometimes, I would have a very bad marriage. You would be extremely ignored.
Only asked what you want, like, yeah.
I would only, I would only be like, Lord, can you do this for me and this for me and this for me, and give me wisdom and help me with this trial and help me with this understanding, and me.
Yeah.
Where a real marriage is, Laura, what can I do for you?
Yeah.
And a real relationship with God is, Lord, what can I do for you to help glorify you?
Yeah.
And because my job as the husband, the only thing I got to do is I got to glorify my wife. You know, she is the Proverbs talks about a faithful wife or a godly wife is the crown jewels on a man's head. You make us look good, in other words.
True story.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then together we glorify God as well. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, there's always room for improvement, and it's always good to be challenged in that. But yeah, I do believe we glorify him.
What was the question?
What ways do you think God is honoured in your marriage?
Yeah, we don't decide whether we're going to church every week. Like,
that's
it's just
true.
it's one decision. When we got married, or
We made
even
that
when we were
decision.
dating, we were like, all right, well, we're going to church every week, and we're going to prayer meeting every Wednesday.
Yeah, we don't
you know?
decide every Sunday. Are we going to church today? No.
No, it's just what you do.
Yeah.
It's just,
Even when we went away, we were in
Yep.
Taupo last week, and we looked up churches. So we went to C3 Church in Taupo.
Nice.
Amazing.
yeah, it was awesome.
Actually,
cool.
there was a guy called Aaron Hardy who was preaching, and he might come on the Jesus Magnet podcast.
Yes.
And he is a musician and
cool.
a pastor. Yeah. Should be quite cool.
It's like Pastor Sean and Pastor Dibs.
Yeah. So let's fire that question back at you guys.
Oh, no. Do you want to start?
Yep, so we honour God by serving. And serving Him as well in church. I'm on the worship team, and Todd's in the sound and AV team. And, you know, not only that, we do other things here and there, but I believe we honour Him in that way, and don't appear to be, you know, selfish in our marriage and want to just be together all the time and just, you know, receive. You know, we want to give when we're at church and show that marriage isn't all about receiving, it's about giving as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like in life anyway.
Yeah, for sure. Financially, I don't we're in our situation where we're at the moment. I don't think we could have done that on our own, and definitely not on our own strength. So, like, all glory to God for the positions He's put us in, and like honoring God and giving Him glory for all that we have and all that we're given and everything that happens in our lives, essentially. Because through COVID, Chantelle was lucky enough to work straight through, and I was lucky enough to keep my job. So He's definitely blessed us with like strength to get through everything. And then when we come to struggle, then we are there together, and we'll get through it together, because we're not trying to do a battle on our own, but try to do it.
And much like your
Together.
decision to go to church every Sunday, it's our decision to tithe every week as well.
Yeah.
And no question about it. And, you know, we're yet to go through a phase in our life where it's troubling, you know, financially, which we're very blessed to not have had that yet, but we know it will come, and it'll test us on that principle and how we continue to honour God and trust that principle.
Yeah, we trust He's going to continue to provide for us through everything.
And even if He doesn't, honour Him.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like it's God's money.
Yeah.
He can do with what He wills.
Testing of a season or something, and checking our hearts. So,
All right. I've got probably, I think, this, for me, this has been the best part of our marriage, and what has strengthened it the most.
go for it.
The importance of a cup of tea.
Yeah.
No joke. This is crazy strong.
A good cup of tea.
So
Why?
almost every day, Laura and I have a cup of tea together. I might have coffee, but most of the time I'll have some sort of girly fruit tea or something like that. But we deliberately put our phones on the coffee table. We don't look at them. We have a cup of tea, and it was only 10, 15 minutes really that's needed, but it normally drags into an hour, which is awesome. But at the end of the day, we make time for each other, to not have a phone in front of our face, to not have Netflix going, or for like gaming as well. That's one thing that I've got to make sure that I put away. And working,
Yeah, pretty right away. Yeah.
Like I would get a text from a tenant being like, "Hey, I need you to help me do this, and we'll be having a cup of tea." And I might glance at it, but then I'll put it down, and I'll be like, "Cup of tea first. This is most important." I mean, the house isn't on fire, you know, or anything like that.
Yeah.
So that has done wonders in our marriage, really. It's allowed us to create these goals with each other, just process what life's been doing with each other. Hey, I've been really struggling with this, or what do you think about me, I don't know, doing something more in the Jesus Magnet podcast, for example. Like every single decision that we've made has been over a cup of tea.
We make it together. Yeah, just there's so much to talk about if you just take all of the distractions away.
Yeah.
And just see where the chat takes you.
Just see where the chat takes you. And you can start with like, what country do you want to travel to next? Or we should maybe look into doing a course together, a Bible course or something like that. Or what do you think about the message on Sunday? Or I've been listening to this new song. What do you think?
Yeah.
Or I'm a drum teacher, so this is how my day went with my students. Or whatever it is, you know, like it really doesn't have to be anything too exact, or it's just putting that person first.
Yeah, it's the principle of putting that time.
Yeah. But not having a phone in front of you.
Yeah.
Like, I would have these cups of tea with my family sometimes, and the biggest pet peeve I have is someone having their phone up when we're having a cup of tea or a coffee. It drives me nuts. What does in primary school you're taught to have eye contact, to sit on your hands if you're not going to stay still and listen. And I've said to my mum, who's a primary school teacher, I'm like, do I need to take your phone off you? And it's so important. and it cracks me up now, but like our culture has become attuned to having these distractions. There's a mass amount of distractions in our lives, and it has got to the point where it can almost take over our lives, and then you blink and it's been 5 years. You know, because we've been looking at a screen the whole time, and your marriage hasn't necessarily gone to the next level, or your type of, our thinking and theology and finance and everything gets sharper the more we process
and we
bounce ideas off each other and things like that.
And we get on the same page with everything. Like, there's so much to it, and like, the
importance of a cup of tea, man.
Yeah, it's important
so
to set that
good.
time aside to like one-on-one
Yeah.
spend time with you. Because if you can't do it in your marriage, how much harder is it going to be to do that with God, who you can't physically sit down and have a cup of tea? You can't see him. You can sit down and have a cup of tea and spend time with him for sure, but if you can't make the time to do that with your spouse, then it's going to probably be a bit harder to do, with God.
In the physical, you can replicate what happens in the physical in the spiritual.
Yeah.
So us physically sitting down having a cup of tea with each other, how powerful that's been for 15 minutes 365 days a year. Now if I physically set time aside to spend with God, same amount of time with God, and I've just got my Bible, I might have some worship music, I might just be praying in tongues outside, or just doing a walk around the house, or whatever it is, or go out at night and just look at the stars. I just thank the Lord for the beauty that he's painted in the sky. And you do that every day, and the movement in our marriage and how strong it is now is it will replicate in your spiritual relationship with God as well. It's so I can't even put enough exaggeration on how important this is.
And it can look different for everyone.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be the cup of tea. It can be just whatever works, but it's that time.
Yeah,
it's that time. Yeah.
That time aside with each other.
Yeah.
You could just go for a quick walk or
Be anything, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I do believe that your relationship with God does change a little bit, like what you were saying, Chantelle, when you first got married and you kind of focused on each other so much that not that you forget about God, but you don't prioritize him as much as you should have, all that. But I think it's normal, really, because you're a bit infatuated, right, when you're first married. But no, I remember on our first year anniversary, we went on this massive road trip, for 2 weeks. It wasn't very big, but we listened to John Bevere in the car, and he said something that stuck with me, and I drew a little diagram. It's like a circle. When you're single, you're one unit, right? So when you speak with God, you get your answer, right? When you're in a marriage, you can both speak to God, but he can give half the answer to your husband and half the answer to me, and you're not going to know unless you communicate. You're one unit, but you're two people, so your answers can be not split, but you've got to come together to get the answer that God's trying to give you, which I think is one of the main changes that happens when you first get married with your relationship with God. That it does change, but it's a good change, but it means you do have to work harder at it. You do have to communicate more, and it's takes more time, but it's way more rewarding as well.
Yeah.
It's
sorry, you go.
I was just going to say, when people say communication is key, they really do mean it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's the when, what, and how. So Laura might have the when and what, and I might have the how.
Yeah.
And Laura's like, I know what I know that this thing needs to be done now, and I know what it is. I got no idea how to do it. And she might be praying and praying and praying and praying about it, and she hasn't asked her husband.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, why don't you just do this? Or I would pray about it and be like, well, I think we should just do it like this.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's like, oh, when, what, how? Done. We know how to do it. And it's only by that simple communication. It's so key.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, is there any other questions?
I've got two.
Yeah, what have you got?
Which one did I do? Garage one. The God one. Garage one. Oh my gosh. The garage keeps opening below, so it's in my head. How would you describe your spiritual life as a couple?
Answered? Did we just answer that?
Yeah, you kind of did. What do you see as a weakness in your marriage? Or, like, what would you want to improve going forth?
Why don't you guys go first? I feel like we've been talking a lot.
Yeah, you guys like to talk, so it's good. A weakness. Yeah, like, weakness is quite a hard word. I'd say improvement.
Areas
Points.
for growth.
Yeah, areas for growth. Yeah, definitely coming together and praying more and more, and actually, like, reading the Bible together. Not reading the Bible, praying separately, and then praying sometimes, but read the Bible and also discuss what we are hearing from God about the verse or what we believe it to say, and then if we don't understand, ask for guidance from the Holy Spirit to tell us what he thinks it's what he wants to tell us in this verse.
That's good.
And then I don't know what else.
I feel like that intentional time, like you guys were talking about, life's just so busy, and it's not an excuse, but it happens, and you forget to make that intentional time, and then you get to the end of the week and you're like, how are you?
Yeah.
I haven't seen you all week because you've been putting other things first, or just talking about chores and shopping and the tasks, rather than what's your life goal,
Yeah. Talking about, intentionally talking about how each other are rather than how's your day. Because how's your day is different to how you actually are.
Yeah.
What about you guys?
Well, when we first started dating and then also in our first few years of marriage, I would like to game in my spare time. And I knew Laura hated that. Man, she hated the fact that I like to game. And over the year, it's been a funny one. So there's two sides to this. Gaming is not really a big issue if it's controlled. But Laura said, look, I don't want you gaming all the time. Okay? Now, I could have just gone and created this rule of maybe I get a couple of hours on Saturday or something like that. But on the flip side, I understood it and prayed to the Lord, and he revealed, you need to put Laura before gaming. So, not that gaming's bad, but Laura's more important. So, there's a time for it, for sure, but it doesn't supersede the time for your wife. So, now with gaming, it's funny. If I want to play PlayStation, Laura's got this love tank.
Yeah.
And I do certain things like clean the house and just to show her that I love her. So there's the love languages. There's words of affirmation. There's physical touch. There's acts of service. And Laura's acts of service a lot. So I really got to show her that I love her. And I am words of affirmation. So Laura's just got to tell me that she loves me, and I feel loved. But I also share my love language. The way that you're wired for your love language. Not only I feel loved with words of affirmation. I also say words of affirmation to Laura, and that's how I show my love. But I've got to realize Laura doesn't necessarily receive it that way. She receives it through acts of service. So I need to put the easy, what I would like somebody to do for me, and I got to go, what would actually Laura done for her? And I know it's acts of service. So I actually need to not just tell her that I love her and that she's awesome and beautiful. I need to put that aside and do stuff for her, which is good.
Make her dinner.
But now, make dinner. doesn't have much. But
How's your love take?
Sorry.
Right?
I had to say that one
It's
off.
pretty good. No, you made dinner the
red
other
light.
day. It was great.
Go you. Go you.
And so now when I go play PlayStation, right, for gaming, it's almost always your love tank's full. Like we've gone for a walk together, or we've done something, you know, and it's not that I had to remove gaming from my life because I knew Laura hated it. There's a place and a time, and I got to understand where and how and where it sits in our marriage. And I've got nothing against anybody that does game that's listening to this, but
Me.
you know, but like honestly, most guys game these days, and like it's not an evil thing. It's
Yeah, it's
fine.
the priorities.
It's where's
of-
your priority?
yeah.
Yeah.
And if gaming is your priority over your wife, you've got an issue. You've got to flip that around. You can still game. You just got to prioritize your wife, and that doesn't mean never gaming.
Yeah, like I'm okay with you gaming.
Yeah,
Like, you know, obviously I was more against it before,
Well,
but like we're so
I'd sit there, and at the moment that I'm like, okay, Laura's getting agitated,
Yeah.
I turn it off.
yeah,
Now, just having that at the center is good enough for you, knowing that, look, if I want to spend time with you, I'll turn it off straight away. You know,
But it doesn't even get to that point anymore.
Yeah, but now because you know that, you actually let me game longer now without getting agitated because you know where it sits in the priority.
yeah,
You know, it's
Yeah,
like sort of
trust. Yeah, it's a trust.
It's a weird, it's a funny thing.
yeah.
So that was a weakness, and now it's not. I think we're very strong with that. But now with actual weaknesses, for me, it's probably pride. It's one of my biggest weaknesses, and this goes towards like for those that aren't listening, I play the drums at church, and it's, you know, quite a dominant instrument, and people see you on stage, and I've got to make sure that never affects the way that I see myself. Like the glory is for God, and even in our marriage, to make sure that I don't idolize drumming over my marriage and over God. Just the other day, somebody was getting praise for being in the worship team and being a servant heart and all this. It was Josiah Tankard. And in my heart, I was like, God, why do I never get recognition? And he actually answered me. He said, you wouldn't be able to handle it. If you got recognition for what you're doing, you would get so consumed with pride, and it would become an idol. So yeah, it was something different. Yeah,
Keeping humble.
yeah,
good.
keeping humble. Paul in our worship team is very good at keeping us all humble.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I was to be really honest, that's what it is.
And with a Christian marriage, I would 100% recommend reading or even just looking at the book, which is the 5 Love Languages.
Oh yeah,
It's so useful because you get to know how the other person reacts to how you act.
yeah,
And it's really intentional. You have to really think about your actions and not just do what, as you said, what's easiest for you, but it's actually what's for them.
yeah.
And if you haven't read it in a while, do it again. Because the love languages do change. Like, Chantelle's changed between dating and getting married.
Oh, true.
A bit more. I think it changed order way more because we were together more. Like, because yours is quality time. And, like, dating, we
That's
weren't
quality distance.
Yeah. Yeah. When we were dating, it was like we weren't together as much. So I definitely felt that it has grown. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, they do change. Like, I
they
think
do, yeah.
my one, which one was I?
I think you were physical
Yeah.
touch, but you're also words.
Yeah, but now I think I'm more words than touch.
Yeah, and so I gotta be real careful what I say, you know, and it's like you, Joe. You know, you've got to Laura. Sorry, you've got to use your words
Yeah.
carefully to show that you love your husband.
Yeah. And not that it should be hard, but man, it's hard. Like, if you're not a words person, it should be so easy. Like, saying you're awesome, you're amazing, you rock, sort of stuff. Yeah, but if it doesn't come naturally, you got to think about it.
Yeah.
It's definitely intentional.
I got to know how to receive that without getting prideful about it as well.
God's working. He's teaching us lessons right, left, and centre.
Yeah.
Girls, give us 3 points before we wrap up of things that us as husbands could do better.
Really?
You personally or general
just do
husbands
well?
in life?
Both. General husbands, like what could, like... yeah.
I would just say my top marriage tips,
Yeah, we
which
pointed
can
them.
help both
Yeah, there we go.
sides. One thing that stuck with me would be don't go to bed angry, and that's from the Bible as well.
Yeah.
I don't know where, but it affects you. We've tried it. We tried to go to bed in an angry state or just
the
upset
worst.
with each other, and you don't sleep until you talk about it and get it solved. Be quick to forgive. And don't stress the little things like the toilet seat. There are things that need to change sometimes. For a better lifestyle in general, but don't let it ruin your relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why should we have to put the toilet
feet-
seat down if you have to put it up? Don't have
Let's
to put
not
it
go
up.
there.
Ephesians 4:26 is where that is in the Bible, that we should not let the sun go down on our anger. Yeah.
And it's also like something was upsetting me, and I didn't want to talk about it with Todd. Went 3 days, I'm pretty sure, without talking about it with him, and it was the worst 3 days. We were so on edge with each other, and he knew that something was wrong, but
It's like when you
I
shake
just
a
was
Coke
being
can.
stubborn and not wanting to talk about it. And then as soon as I did, I felt so much better.
Yeah.
Prod the beer. Go, Laura.
In love.
Yes, in love.
In love, yeah. A big one for me, I suppose, is celebrating the wins. I don't know if I should say, I'm bad at celebrating, but I like to work hard. I have my goals and I put my head down and I get there. But once you get there, I already have a new goal and I'm ready to start working on the next one. And Joel's always like, no, we've got to celebrate the wins. So whether that's just going out for a nice dinner or, I don't know,
I wouldn't go out for dinner otherwise.
well, just any sort of celebrating the wins. It's really important. Even if it costs money, it's just worth doing. You've got to work hard for sure, but taking a break, celebrating is very important as well.
Yep.
Yeah. And challenging each other is another big one for me. Some people love being challenged. Others don't. And it depends in what area, I suppose, for me. It depends on if I like it or not. But being pushed to do things in love, of course.
Yes, in love.
Yeah. Yeah, not being bullied into something, of course. But when you know you got to do something and you're just too scared to, or you're too, you just don't want to because you're tired or whatever, having that person there to push you, encourage you, and support you to do that is huge. I think that's really important in a marriage. And probably to be intentional, like we already mentioned, with your love languages for sure. You got to be real intentional because usually you're not marrying someone with the same love language as you. So it's usually not the most natural thing. So yeah, just making sure you be very intentional in all sorts of different things, whether that's love languages or, I don't know, learning how to cook or something like that.
Hint, hint.
It's not pointed at anyone here in this room.
No.
Todd, what's one of your points before we go? You can't steal any of mine because I've got one.
I haven't. Let me just delve
Just
deep.
bring it back to God.
Yeah. I think. Yeah, Laura said challenge each other, but definitely challenge each other in your faith. And something we need to do more is to be together more in terms of reading the Bible, because we don't do that enough as a couple. We pray together, but reading the Bible, like Chantelle said earlier, it does get busy, but put God first.
Hmm.
John?
For me, the importance of a cup of tea.
Nice.
That's the most important, I think, for me personally. I love just sitting down with a cup of tea, and we are either talking about God or friends or family or goals and dreams. And every single time that we do that, I learn that little bit more from my wife. And because, man, you think you know someone. And you do this every day, I can guarantee you figure out real quick, man, there's a lot in this person that I am constantly getting to know. And they're always growing as well. We said this before the podcast started, when we're having lunch, is a person, since we're in a constant stage of growth and change, that you, in 10 years, you will be a different person. So you can ask the same questions. The love language, for example, you know, you got different love languages. Only a few years into your marriage.
Close enough. Yeah.
And so the cup of tea thing, you kind of get to watch that curve.
Yeah.
And it's cool to see the character. Like, I could say, Laura, what's a cool Bible verse? And she'll pull something out that I didn't even know was in the Bible. And it's like, man, got a really wise wife. You know? It just throws you, you know? And I think you fall more and more in love with each other when those moments happen. It's this it's like a state of awe almost. Like, wow. Yeah.
For sure.
That would be me.
Nice. Do you want to wrap us up?
Let's do it. Well, thank you for listening into the Jesus Magnet podcast. And we'll come back, see us next time. You can find us on Facebook if you just look up the Jesus Magnet. We're also on Instagram and Twitter. So message us if you liked this content, and if you have something that you want to share, a testimony or a great topic that you find yourself an expert in, please contact us. We'd love to have you on. Remember, all for the glory of God. Have a fantastic day.